How would you stage it so that you see the guy for the first time that they've made, like this guy? Because that reveal would be really funny. Like it's a form, and it's super down the hallway, right? You use that corridor, and then basically you see this big Hulk, and you ain't gonna do nothing.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
Who are you?
Who are you?
And then it starts rolling. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I like that. A lot of the times, stuff that you're thinking about as a filmmaker will bubble up to the surface. You know, whatever's going on in your life. People talk about theme. What are you trying to say inside? Recently, I was pitching some stories, and somebody said, "You realize that all those stories have to do with hitting a glass ceiling, right?" And I was like, huh. I didn't
you hadn't thought
that.
of it until that person pointed it out, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's the story itself, it's the idea, it's the question. What if this? What's the hook? What's the elevator pitch, is what often has it said. But sometimes it's a great character. I found in my years, at least in the movies I've made, that most likely the notes you're going to get are about the character, that we don't care who the character is or what they're going through, or we don't understand what they want. 9 times out of 10, that is really what ends up driving the movie, and then everything else hopefully services that.
Yeah, we like the idea of this parrot.
You'd have to set up that he heard a couple of things, like from a crime drama, like a couple of lines.
Yeah, or he's just mimicking what he heard.
and it does like a, you know.
Well, that's the fun of that is that the bird's inside mimicking the voices.
Yeah. And then ultimately you have to reveal like him, like it's just a bird cage.
Yeah.
And then he's like takes the bird, and then the bird is in peril, and that's when he finally is like he's got to take.
Oh, that's
action.
good. Whatever script that they're writing, my job is to sort of act as the cameraman, basically, and figure out what are the angles of the scene, character introduction, character motivation, world building. It all kind of comes in those early stages of what I do. And then, ideally, you start getting information from other departments as the film progresses, and everyone starts feeding each other all this information. But story is what I do.
My job is to basically breathe life into the characters. As a directing animator, you're basically concentrating on getting the best performance out of that character from the other animators, or whether you're animating a shot, and you're trying to get the director's vision as clear as possible translated onto film for them. The premise of the short is that, you know, it's about this store owner who owns like a kind of a bird shop or a pet store, and basically a character comes into the shop, you know, almost like a mobster, kind of a collector, and he, you know, forces this guy to pay up, and obviously he's not doing well, the store's doing terribly, and you know, he intimidates him, you know, he breaks off kind of like, you know, the head of a toy bird, shows him like, look, this is what's going to happen if you don't pay me. The whole time, a bird who is like the store bird is witnessing this, and very smartly kind of comes up with maybe a plan to kind of help the store owner and hopefully stand up for himself. They're not going to answer the problem completely for him, but it's just basically a simple story of a guy who is powerless and by the end is a little bit more in power, hopefully.
Yeah, we like the idea of the shop, if it isn't doing well, that at the end that it is doing well.
Yeah.
So a negative to a positive, these are very simple things that we can do for a short film.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were thinking about, you know, maybe it's way back in the 20s, he's listening to like a classic crime drama and he's mimicking, you know, the sayings of the mobsters, and that's intimidating the other guy, like, hey, who you got working for you? You know, how can we utilize clothing, you know, where they dress themselves up, or you dress up basically a classic bird cage so that it looks like it's got a, you know, a big hulking figure with a hat on it, you know, and then you shoot it in a certain way. So we just wanted to play with the story so that we could play around with staging, character, animation.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a Citizen Kane, but it's going to, it's a great exercise to kind of learn from.
Yes, and to come up with solutions. And
Yeah.
I like the idea, like we saw today, that there's actually other things in here. There's a little rabbit in a cage. There's little kittens. Maybe they can be utilized somehow.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, great, thank you.
Reference for me is always the first stage of anything when I'm planning a shot that I go into just research mode, and it's like a kickoff. I'm looking at it from an animation perspective first, like character-wise. What can I get from the birds? What mannerisms do the birds do? How do they turn their heads? What do their eyes look like? Their body language, getting any cues from that.
Hello. Hello. What do you do? You just wave?
That's great.
See, that's the mimicking.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Can you? I'm laughing. See, if we use that as like a cynical laugh, that could be really an interesting part of the film,
Being in a physical space like that is really helpful. You just get a sense of what camera angles that we can use and what physical objects can be used to help with the general story.
Like when he's trying to get away from the guy, he could be like, knock this down, and then like throw the seeds, and then
that's great. Falling on,
that could be like a good idea, right?
What they can grab.
You start to hear things. You're using your ear to like. These birds are talking and they're squawking, and so one are going, and then another one's going. They're all spurring ideas.
Absolutely.
And it's just
even the
constant.
level of audio, I realized, well, I got really loud in there, so that potentially could be what could be unnerving for this mob guy that comes back.
Sure.
For the money. It's like how loud it got in there.
Exactly.
I wasn't quite expecting that, yeah.
All right, so we want to get like maybe these first shots were kind of nice of him, basically just walking in, just for an established shot. It's not going to be this much, but this shot right here.
Yeah, that's great.
He goes in, right? And that could be like the bird shot. When you're looking at film clips, and when an animator or a story person is looking from a film clip perspective, we're both looking at different things. Nate is probably looking for composition, lighting, where the camera is.
Yeah.
Am I right?
And the shot structure. That's what I look at, is how is the scene put together. But it is more specifically composition, staging, and camera angles and things like that. But there's something really nice about this framing that's coming out.
Yeah.
This feels really good. But for our purposes, it would be cages.
Yeah, right. But the general idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you want that? Here, see? What is it, a bunch of guns?
Yeah.
And no need for a
Background check.
No need for a background check, just take it. As an animator, I'm basically like looking at it from character performance. Like, how did they do it in that film that might help me? Oh, okay, that guy fell really interesting. This guy had an interesting mannerism. If we have actors, we're shooting reference of the actual dialogue session. Maybe there's something there. Because with animation, as opposed to acting a lot of the times, you're kind of going from the outside in. You're really trying to make something that is not spontaneous look spontaneous. So if I was animating a shot, let's just say it's this shot right here. I would really literally, I would set up my camera, very similar to the shot that I was doing the reference for. I would lay it down, I'd try to look at the storyboards, and then I would act it out the way that it was in the boards. I'd take the money. Where's the rest, right? And so I would try it a bunch of different times. I'd be like, where's the rest? Where's the rest? Where's the rest? Where's the rest? You know, often in animation you tend to do too much. So in live action, you know, we're trying to, there's like a good kind of splitting the difference. You know, we're trying to figure out what is the scene about? How are my brows moving, right? So if he's looking down at his money like this, and then that change, what does that change from here to where's the rest, right? And so we're paying attention to the nuance, the change. We're looking for that change. Any sort of character that we're animating, we have to understand the locomotion first. And then the acting will go on top of that. If it's going to be, say, a bird that's going to be in the story, of course we're going to be researching that thing. I don't want it to feel like a guy in a bird suit. It has to feel like a bird for real. And then the acting is always on top of that. That's really the way that I was always taught. When you look at something real, it can go through the filter of your eye, and then you can translate it the way you want it. When you're looking at animation to animation, it's kind of like you're cannibalizing what somebody else already did. And you know, they had an idea for how they wanted to animate it. So I like to stick to a lot more of a live action reference base. So, you know, once we have, you know, the story and we have an idea of where it's going, you know, usually in parallel, art is doing their thing and animation is going to be doing their thing. So while story is figuring it out, we have a sense of who are the characters, what is it that they have to do, what do they want. I mean, you know, there's so many different ways that we could go with this. You know, the first pass will obviously be the simplest, where it's a guy that is not in power, that is ultimately, by the end of the short, in power and taking control of himself. So that could be one path. Or who knows, maybe the bully or the guy that is collecting, somehow he learned something. The bird is kind of the catalyst a little bit, maybe. You know, he's the character that you, through the audience, are feeling empathy through this bird. You know,
absolutely.
And I guess we could explore that, you know, but as soon as you go a little bit too far, we don't want it to be like singing and dancing and, you know, doing too much. That we kind of want to retain some truth to the world a little bit.
Yeah, that is the balance. Does it get too cartoonish?
Yeah.
But that's all about the kind of short. What kind of short do we want to make?
Pay up. Where's my money? Huh?